Hi, I'm Venus O'Hara. I make content about holistic self-love, and I've been doing Vlogmas. And I must apologize for my interruption of production because I got so tired at the weekend. I just had to hibernate and go inwards and just hug myself and stay on the sofa and watch Emily in Paris, which is the topic of today's video. And to give you my perspective on season 5 of Emily in Paris. And I am someone who has lived in Paris. I'm going to give you my perspectives, and this will have some spoilers. So if you haven't watched it and you're thinking of watching it, just be warned, be warned. So Emily in Paris. Well, this season starts in Rome, which is kind of interesting. It made me ask the question, are there going to be different Emily in different cities in the future? Because that would be really cool. It'd be really nice to have something in Spain, like Madrid or even Sevilla or Barcelona. That would be kind of nice. And it's kind of nice to have that perspective on these different cities, I think. And also, Rome is so beautiful. I remember I went to Rome a couple of years ago, and everywhere you go, almost everywhere, is just absolutely incredible. The beauty is amazing. I'm not someone who actually enjoyed history at school at all, but I remember just walking around all these old buildings and just being fascinated by the beauty and how well everything is preserved. So Rome is beautiful, and a very beautiful backdrop as well. So I was wondering if the whole season would be in Rome, but if I'm not mistaken, it's about just under half. And talking about the love affairs, because she was with a Marcello, this Italian guy in Rome. I was kind of glad that it wasn't going to be just, Gabrielle and Alfie again. That has been going on for far too long right now. And but anyway, before we go into the love triangle, I'm going to draw a triangle here on my notes so I don't forget. I really, a lot of people have said online that they didn't like the excessive product placement. This was really kind of excessive, I would say, but they managed to weave in these brands into the storyline quite well, because the Agence Grato, the agency that she's working for, is a luxury agency. So that's kind of typical of what a daily life or work tasks would be like if you're in the luxury sector. I used to work in luxury real estate, so I've worked in the luxury sector for a couple of years, and you do get kind of like swept away by this culture of watches and yachts and fragrance and having the right handbag, all of that. And when you're in that bubble, it all does seem so real. So that's something that I've seen people complain about. I do think it was done in a way that seemed seamless, and it was definitely part of the storyline. But is it realistic? I think it's realistic for people in those worlds, for sure. But going back to Paris, so after a while, after a few episodes in Rome, they go back to Paris. And something that I've noticed about this series that's similar to my experience in Paris, which was many moons ago, is that the apartment situation in Paris is very weird. I mean, there were some things that I saw in Paris I've never seen anywhere else. Such as, if you look at the apartment where Emily lives, the first thing you'll notice when she first arrived there is that there is no lift. And, going up lots and lots of steps in an old building is kind of typical, was quite typical in some buildings in the centre of Paris, also centre of Barcelona. And also the distribution of these apartments is very weird. It's not somewhere to kind of live forever. But I've always wondered in Emily's apartment that she's sharing with Mindy, like, where do they sleep? You've got your bed next to your kitchen, and it's very strange. And also when I was living in Paris, I lived in 2 different apartments. One was a studio, and it was tiny, like 18 square meters, everything together, and then a separate bathroom, obviously a separate bathroom. And it was just weird because you're in bed, which is also your sofa during the day, and you can hear the fridge at night. It's not kind of the kind of place where you would invite friends over for dinner. It's just a place to sleep and eat and just do your basics, basically. And then something else which is rings true from my experience is the fact that when you go into a shop, you have to greet the person who's serving you, because if you don't, they can get very passive aggressive. Like, for example, I think there was a scene where she goes to the boulangerie and she asks for a baguette or a croissant, and then the woman's just like, bonjour, bonjour, bonjour. And that happened to me a few times as well in a clothes shop. And then you wonder who's more rude. Is it them for doing this passive aggressive reaction, or is it you for not saying hello? But if you don't know, you don't know. But then you find out pretty quickly though. So that bonjour is very, you have to say it because just to kind of get on the right side of people. So that's something that's definitely true or similar to my experience. Another experience I had when I had a very weird apartment, I had the shower in the kitchen, which was so weird, but I had a view of La Tour Eiffel and I had a view of La Tour Montparnasse from my bedroom, which was very cool. And another thing which was weird is that I had an apartment with a toilette à la turque, which is basically a hole in the ground. And those kind of things I'd never seen before. And I was like, oh my God, this is kind of crazy. But yeah, small. And I was living in a beautiful building, a beautiful area. But that type of thing is kind of strange anyway for me, for my experience of life. And yeah, so those things rang true for me. But also, an observation of, expats in European cities. It's very common where, Brits and Americans especially just spend years and years and years in a foreign country and not learning the language. And that's very typical, unfortunately. And I think you don't get the full authentic experience if you don't speak the local language. And then this is kind of arrogance of, they speak bad English here or whatever, And I think, we have to acknowledge that you are the foreigner if you're coming to someone else's country. And also for practical reasons. I mean, if you need something at 2 a.m., I mean, can you find a locksmith who speaks English? It's that kind of thing as well. I think it's important for practical terms, for cultural terms, just for basic politeness to make an effort and learn the local language. So that's very typical. To be in a city for years and not speak the language. I know so many people who do the same thing here in Barcelona. I've seen it in Paris and Madrid too. But anyway, going back to this season 5, I was glad that it wasn't going to be another love triangle with Alfie and Gabrielle. And Alfie, what a nice guy. I just think he is in a brilliant casting there. And I really like his personality. I really do like him. But in this series, he's actually having a love triangle with Mindy. And it seems to be like he's the spare part all the time. He's never been chosen. And he's the nicest guy ever. And he's hot. And he's just... it's an interesting character, and he's not someone who you would feel sorry for either. He's a cool guy, but yeah, it was again he's kind of like left on the side in this episode. So yeah, this is a kind of love triangle where Mindy, who is Emily's best friend, has this affair with Alfie and then doesn't tell her. So it brings up that question about the girl code. Can you get off with your friend's ex, even if they're not together and they're with someone new? I think it's a bit compliqué. Personally, I am someone who respects the girl code a lot. And also it's just because I just don't feel attracted to people that my friends are attracted to. So I don't really have issues with that. But I have had some ex-friends who just don't care about that, and it makes you wonder like where the boundaries are. But of course this is just fiction. Instead of bringing new characters in, they need to have some kind of tension and triangles happening, because otherwise there would be no storyline. What else have I written down here? What did I write? Yeah, so somewhat a character that I really love in this is Sylvie. And I just think the character of Sylvie is very typically Parisian. It's just really cool how direct she is, and you always know where you are with people like that. But also, when I met people like that when I was working in Paris, I was an intern, and I find people like that to be they kind of throw me off. Because in England, we tend to be over polite, even if, we maybe don't speak our minds a lot of the time. Whereas sometimes I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I remember asking a woman once, I said I admired her long hair. And I said, oh, my hair's really dry. And she just looked at me and goes, that's because you don't look after it. And it was just very cutting remarks like that. And for my sensitive self as a stagiaire, an intern in Paris, it was a bit like, oh my God, I don't know what to say around this woman because she could have this cutting remark. And that can be very, very off-putting, I think. And also something else I noticed when I was French women, they tend to be able to have all this bread and then they smoke and then they're super skinny. You just wonder, how do they do that? Whereas I went to Paris and I put a lot of weight on just from these pain au chocolat every morning. It was just, walking past the boulangerie and the smell just fresh out of the oven and the pain au chocolat and the croissants. Like, oh my God. As a vegan now, it'd be a bit different as well. But yeah, it was amazing. And then what else was I going to say? Yeah, this Gabrielle thing, it's just a bit boring in the end. But I wasn't really charmed by the new guy, Marcello. He's a good-looking guy, but I just wasn't one of those characters where I thought, yeah, choose him. So it was a bit lukewarm this time, the love triangle. So I'm not sure how long you can bring it on, or you can actually play it out. This will they not, this Gabrielle and Emily thing, because I think what makes series go on for a long time is when two characters have these secret feelings. It kind of keeps you on the edge a lot of the time, and aren't they are they gonna say how they feel? Because if they just kind of got together, it kind of spoils it and it's less interesting from a viewer's perspective. But that said, I'm just kind of like a bit lukewarm about that now. For me, the best thing about this series was just how lighthearted it was and just the beautiful backdrops as well. And the clothes. I mean, Mindy's always talking about how she doesn't have any money, but she seems to dress like someone who has a lot of money. So that's a bit kind of confusing, very confusing. But all in all, it's a great way to spend a winter evening on the sofa this Christmas. I hope you haven't been put off by this opinion, but I'll definitely be watching the next series, and I hope there is a series, and I hope they do discover some more cities in Europe, because there are many more to discover. And that's my video of today, Emily in Paris. So tell me, have you watched Emily in Paris? What do you think? I would love to read your comments below. And then tomorrow is the last Vlogmas, or maybe I'll do one on 25th as well. We will see. So that's it. À la prochaine. Mwah.